Here we go. We're live.
It says live. Yeah.
So now we can see. I don't know. Now we have to figure out where the YouTube comments are.
That's what I was. Yeah. I don't see anything. I mean, I could go
This
to YouTube.
live now.
Here we go.
But see now, now it's getting an echo for me, and it's a little bit delayed.
It is delayed. Oh my God. I got to cut that out.
So you can, if you mute the video on YouTube.
That's fine. I don't need to look at the comments that bad.
Yeah, I'm sure. So it says we have 5 watching.
Hello, everybody.
Hello.
We're just working through our technical features.
We're on a new setup here.
Before we go officially live. Thanks for joining.
If you're in the YouTube stream right now, can you let us know if A, you can hear both of us, and B, what you see on your video? Because all I see right now in the YouTube video is just Frank.
Really? Well, that's important.
I don't see myself, which is not a huge deal. Let's see, maybe if I go like this, does that change it? Hello. Live chat. Oh yeah, now it's switching between us.
Okay, great.
Okay, well, I guess we can pretty much get started anytime.
Okay, yeah, you want to do it?
Yeah, let's just wait until 11, just for
continuity.
T-minus 1 minute.
1 minute, folks. 1 minute. 1 to go. This is like like everyone's in the staging corral.
Yeah.
We're counting down.
Cameraman, control room. Let's see if anyone. Sound is okay. Okay.
Oh yeah. Okay. Just okay.
Hopefully it's all right. All right. I think we it's 10:59.
It's like that commercial that says just okay.
Me?
It's just okay, good enough. That TV commercial.
Yeah. I wonder why it's so bright up here.
All right, I got 11.
All right. Let's do it.
Okay. You ready?
I'm ready.
Welcome to the Fast Cat Podcast. I'm your host, Frank Overton. Some call me the Big Cat. And I'm joined today with the one and only Jackson Long.
Hello. I'm here tuning in live from Idaho. We're doing our first live podcast remote version. So like this is the beauty of technology in 2019, that we can maintain the podcast even though we're in 2 different states, hundreds of miles away. But yeah, so hopefully we get through this with no major technical difficulties. We've been on here the last hour trying to figure this out, but I think it's going. I mean, it seems like it's working, but yeah, happy to be here. Excited to be back on the podcast flow after a little bit of a break. But yeah, I'm back in action, spending a couple weeks out in Idaho with the family, and I'm gonna do some good rides, do some filming content stuff on Rebecca's private Idaho courses while I'm here as well, because I am lucky enough to have been born and raised in the hometown location of Rebecca's private Idaho, which is one of probably my favorite gravel race. So definitely, if you have the opportunity to come out here and ride, it's a wonderful place.
Yeah, I hope to make it out there for Labor Day.
Yeah.
You were trying to talk me into it before we went live. You were making a really good case.
It's a sweet spot, and it's the gravel riding here is amazing, especially that time of year. It's super beautiful. So a little bit less hot than it is in Boulder from the sounds of it.
You guys, it's we complained all winter and spring how we had a never-ending winter, and now it's 97 degrees. It's like
Careful what you wish
oven
for.
oven hot.
Yeah.
I just got an email before we went live that the group ride, the lunch ride, was canceled due
Wow.
to it being too hot, and so it's the yin and the yang
Yeah.
here. And yeah, I was thinking this morning when I was thinking about podcast topics, we should do a podcast on heat coping techniques and ways to train in the heat and what you can do about it. And yeah, it could be a future topic, just given the latest temperatures. But Jackson, if you didn't pick up, Jackson's in Idaho. I'm in Boulder. For the audio listeners, you probably won't notice the difference. But for the live listeners, thank you everyone for joining. You'll notice we have a split screen, different studio for me. You'll notice Jackson is, well, he's not sitting next to me like normal. But today we are podcasting about Strava vols. And what I mean by that is using Strava live segments for your interval training. And I want to tell you about and describe a training technique because it's fun and more importantly, it's productive. And I call it Strava vols as a play on words like intervals. And so Strava vols is going as hard as you can, like an interval, but you're using the live Strava segment for motivation. And so for everyone out there that's used the live segments, they're like, oh yeah, nice. But if you haven't used Strava live segments, we'll really encourage you to check it out. It's relatively easy. You just need a Strava premium account, or I think they're calling it a summit account nowadays. And yeah, you just need to sync your Strava account to your Wahoo or Garmin, and then the wonders of GPS technology is that when you roll across the beginning of this segment, the bike computer will beep at you and it'll tell you to begin. And then the coolest part of it all is it'll tell you how long you have left in the segment, if you're ahead or behind your PR or KOM. And it really will just help you dig a little bit deeper than maybe you would on your own. And me as a coach, that's what I like, because it gets you to go harder than you would for a normal interval. And yeah, that's what we're talking about today.
Yeah, I mean, I think any way we can eke out a little bit of extra effort, a few extra watts, I think is going to make a huge difference, especially over the course of a season. Or, because, a lot of people talk about how, racing is such great training because you have that extra motivation from the competitors and kind of the race experience to push you that extra, 1 or 2% than you would just kind of by yourself. And some people, we've talked about this before, but some people are just much more extrinsically motivated than they are intrinsically motivated. And so having that little extra, motivation from, especially just based purely on the, for better or for worse, the popularity explosion that Strava has experienced, where, people want to, throw down with their friends and keep track of their KOMs and, their times on segments. I think I love it. I think it's a really cool way to, track your progress over time on your local climb or some sort of, segment that you train on and do intervals on. It can be just real time, quantitative, detailed progress and sort of analytics of how you're actually progressing, how you're doing. And so this is I think it's a little bit more of like a, 21st century, 2019 version of, of training that's just kind of taking it a little bit to the next level. And obviously you don't want to have it turn into where you're Phil and obsessed with Strava, but I think you have to, become, you still have to balance that with normal training and normal racing and not get too carried away and get, because it can, I think a potential problem with this too, to just be wary of, is on the flip side, you can also get negatively impacted by, and we'll talk about this, but negatively impacted by, your time, as you're tracking these live segments, or just, even separate from the live segment tracking, just if you're like, oh, if I'm, feeling really good, I'm preparing for this race coming up this weekend or next weekend. And, and so then you go out and do a little test on your local climb and you are, a minute behind your normal time, that's going to get in your head potentially. And so you can't let that happen. But I think it's a really useful tool.
It's like a group ride of one if
Yeah.
you don't have a group ride. And to Jackson's point, this is, you'll use Strava vols this time of year. As a coach, the last thing I want to do is tell my athletes here in mid-July to do another VO2 workout. We've already done a lot, and a lot of athletes out there, their motivation, we're inside of 5 to 6 weeks left in the traditional road mountain bike calendar, for the Rocky Mountain region and a lot of other regions. Notwithstanding Texas and California and maybe Arizona, New Mexico. But the point is, with 5 weeks left to go, you don't need to do 2 sets of 3 by 4 minutes on, 4 minutes off, VO2 max between 265 and 305. What you can do is 3 efforts. And before Strava came along, I would tell athletes to go over to a particular hill for which I knew the duration that it would take them to go up. And, using Old Stage in Boulder, Colorado, for example, that's about a 4-minute hill, give or take a minute. The KOM is 241, I believe. My PR is like 411 or something. But you can tell an athlete to go over to Old Stage and go as hard as they can from the bottom to the top. And physiologically what you're going to get back from them is a VO2 max effort. But mentally, they weren't looking at the stopwatch and going as hard as they can. They were motivated from the sheer effort of going from as hard as they could from the bottom to the top, and they used the top of the climb to push them and hold that effort. And now with Strava live segments, you're able to kind of take that to the next level and use the technology during an effort to keep you motivated and to perhaps dig a little deeper than you would than just with saying, hey, do 3 efforts. So yeah, that's what we want to tell you about today, and we should get into it. But first, let me read you all the review of the week. The review of the week comes from Elliot, and he has been listening to the Fast Cat podcast for over a year, gives us 5 stars. And he says, I was originally planning on sweet spot training and some common knowledge on steady state interval training. However, like everything else in life, something happened and I was hit by a car. Out for 6 weeks with a torn hamstring and other bumps and bruises. Yes, I was lucky. I decided to rebuild using Fast Cat sweet spot training and then sign up for the Crusher in the Tusher plan. I really liked having the specifics of each day planned out for me and then ported to my Garmin. However, by far the best part of the plan was being able to go on the forum and ask Frank and his team questions, probably too many questions, he puts in parentheses, but not really, Elliot. The more questions, the better. Elliot goes on to say, the response time was amazing, FTFP, exclamation point, times 4. This was my 3rd Crusher, and I PR'd by 17 minutes.
Nice.
Wow. Well, awesome, Elliot. Sounds like you probably won in the kitchen as well. So congratulations, and thanks a lot for leaving us such a wonderful review. And with that said, Jackson, you want to talk about some Strava goals?
Yeah, I think we should get into it. I think, kind of like what you were mentioning earlier is that this is sort of like in that realm of like training hacks a little bit. I'm kind of not a huge fan of like hacking your training or your diet or your life. There's this huge kind of world and popularity of like hacks, biohacking and diet hacking, and
Right.
but this is, I think, a really just simple and effective way to just get a little bit more out of your legs and out of your mind. I mean, I basically last year was the first time that I used this kind of technique, and just, from my own personal experience, kind of, I use this a lot in my preparation for last year's Crusher.
Mm-hmm.
Because I got a bolt like last winter, and I discovered this concept of Strava live segments, and luckily,
We,
what's that?
we used it in when we filmed our
The gravel
the
simulation.
gravel simulation video.
Yeah, and that was, one of the first times that I had done an effort like that with that, because, I mean, obviously in Boulder, we are lucky and cursed in the sense that a lot of our, we have a lot of amazing climbs and segments here, but they're all dominated by people like Sepp Kuss and Mike Woods and, all these pros that
Taylor
are just,
Finney,
yeah, they're like, we can't, they're on a whole nother level. So it
they're
doesn't really
untouchable.
help to look at the KOM thing. But what's cool is you can switch between the KOM and your own PR, so you can compare against, your best time. And so I did a lot of that just because of, training for the Crusher involves a lot of long climbs, obviously. And so it was a great way for me to sort of measure against myself in training in a way that is a little bit more specific than, just going in for wattage. Just, I mean, I think especially for people that don't have power meters, it's a great, kind of quantitative way to, track how you're doing against yourself and other people. And I think it's a really useful training technique.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you mentioned for those who don't have power meters, and that's a wonderful point. I mean, this is literally timing how fast you can travel from point A to point B.
Yeah.
And old school, pre power meter, pre heart rate. I mean, this is why Strava is so popular. I mean, it's elegant in that, when you do a climb, 30 years ago, people would say, I did that climb in 17 minutes and 14 seconds. And then, they'd go do some training and come back and see if they could go sub 17 minutes, for
Yeah.
example. And Strava has just taken GPS technology and just organized that into an easy to follow and comparable format. And, you mentioned power. Power tells one thing, but for a lot of the climbs, it's really your power to weight that matters more than just your power. Because if you've gained weight and you're making the same power, you go up slower. And similarly, if you've lost some weight, you'll go up faster. But really, what we stress on or emphasize on this podcast is what I call increase the numerator and decrease the denominator. So power to weight, power over weight. So you want to raise your power output, decrease your body weight, and that's how you get your Strava PR and KOM and these. That's why I think Strava is so fun and popular. And to your point, Jackson, about using it sparingly, this is something that I'll use in July and August, towards the end of the season when motivation is kind of waxing and waning. And the thought of, as I mentioned, doing a VO2 effort or interval workout is just the last thing you want to see on your training plan. But physiologically, and this goes to your point, the hack is if you can just, do 2 to 3 efforts, oftentimes because you're already so fit, so fast, you just need to kind of rev the engine a little bit. And 2 to 3, you don't need to do like 2 sets of, 3 reps per set. And because you're only doing 2 or 3, what you can do is just go that much harder. This is where using the live segment comes in, and you can try to PR. And that's what I like to have athletes do, for instance, here in like July and August. And because it's fun, if the training is fun, it's going to be productive and it's a win-win. So yeah, that's kind of the Strava Vols in a nutshell. And if you're on board and if you want to try it, let's get into it.
Yeah.
So I think the first thing that you need to do to get started is, you got to have a Strava account, and the basic is free for those of you that don't want to spend any more money. But to use the live segments, you got to get the premium account. I think they call it Summit now, and it's approximately $8 a month, and that's what gets you the live segments. You'll need a Garmin or a Bolt, and you need a bike computer that's Strava live segment compatible. And then what you need to do is go record some data and upload it to Strava. And then from your rides, what you'll do is you'll go into the individual segments and you can star them. And if I am tech savvy enough, I will show you that on the live video. And I do believe we have,
Boom.
boom, look at that. These are my Strava live segments that I have starred. These are from rides that I do in and around Boulder. There's a few, like when I went to Hawaii for spring break in Maui, I went and looked at Strava, looked at a few segments, and I went and starred them so I could use those for motivation. So if you're like going to a different riding spot, you can use the live segments like this. But going back up to the top three here, this is very convenient in the way that Strava has organized them, because these three segments represent three different physiological adaptations that you can train from using Strava live segments, and it's all based on the duration. So if you're doing efforts or intervals in the 20 to 60 second range, you're training your anaerobic glycolytic pathway. If you're doing intervals in the 3 to 6 minute range, you're training your VO2 max. If you're doing intervals in the 8 to 60 minute duration, you're training your threshold power, what you use for time trialing, for climbing. And so when you go in and you choose your Strava live segment to go for, pay attention to the duration. You can also just pay attention to a segment that you really like and motivates you and just go hard on that. But like if you're a crit racer, go in and choose a 20 to 60 second Strava segment. If you're doing a road race, like if you're doing Masters Nationals coming up in Colorado Springs in about 3 weeks, you want to choose segments in the 3 to 5 minute range. And if you're training for the time trial, you want to do segments in the 8 to 60 minute range. Or like if you're training for the Crusher, you would look at this Boulder to Gold Hill, because for us mere mortals, it's like a 50 to 70 minute segment depending on your power to weight. So star the segment. That's what you see here. I think you can follow that, and you'll find that data. I don't know if you can see this. This is a group ride. Can you see that, Jackson?
Mm-hmm.
So cool. So this is a group ride that I did. Gosh, that was yesterday morning, and in there's some fun segments we do, and there's this one segment that we do that you turn off this road and you go on this gravel trail, and it's twisty and it's loose, and we use this for good cornering practice, and it's also really hard. And here you can, if you follow my mouse, you can see it. The KOM is about a 10 minute 6 second effort. And at one time when before the youngsters came along and would grab it, I did have the KOM on this for a brief hot minute. And but anyway, the point is, this is what we would call a group ride Strava live segment. And I don't really use the live segments while we're racing. We pretty much do a race simulation on this, but you can, when you do a group ride, use a Strava segment for extra motivation. I digressed a little bit, but getting back to the physiological adaptation. So you choose a duration that is specific to the type of racing that you're training for, or really just something that motivates you. And then you star that segment, and there you go. And so what happens for those of you that have used the live segments, you'll know that when the GPS technologies, when you roll across the beginning of that segment, your Garmin or your Bolt will say beep, begin, and you're riding hard. And the coolest feature, I think, is where it says ahead or behind. And if you're going good and you're 2 seconds ahead of your PR, it'll tell you that. And that is, that's positive reinforcement right there to a T. And that positive reinforcement will motivate you to hold your effort all the way to the end of the segment or the top of the climb. And that's a great way of doing intervals. And that's why I joke, it's like a group route of one, or it's like having your coach in your ear, things like that. On the other hand, say you roll across the segment and you're 3 seconds behind your PR. The Strava Live segments will tell you that. And, 3 seconds for a, 5-minute effort, that's not that much time to overcome. And a lot of athletes can just dig that much deeper, turn themselves inside out, go extra super hard, and push themselves harder than they could on their own if they weren't using a live segment. And oftentimes, as you're digging deep, you can see that time come back. It's like you're 3 seconds down, now you're 2, now you're 1, now you're even. It's like hold it. And then now you're 1 second ahead, and you get to the end of the segment. And what's also gratifying is it'll tell you right then and there that you PR'd. So you don't have to wait till you go back home and upload your ride. Your bike computer will just tell you either PR'd and it'll say congratulations, or it'll say you're a second or 2 behind. So it's super fun. And the other thing that Strava Live segments tells you, if you're doing a really long segment, like what we did in that gravel simulation video where it was like a 50-minute segment, it tells you how much longer you have to go. So you have maybe you've completed 20 minutes and you have like 20 more minutes to go, and then it counts down. It also tells you how many more miles you have. Like I used the Strava Live segments when we did the Haute Route in Asheville, because I had never ridden those segments before. And I just went in and found them in Strava, started them. And then that helped me during the Haute Route to gauge, because I didn't know where the top of the climb was. But with the Strava Live segments, I was able to see, okay, we have 1.5 miles, and Strava is saying I have about 3 more minutes left to hold this effort. So that was motivating.
Yeah, I think it's super useful and helpful in, I guess, you don't want to probably use it too much in racing, but like I've found that even aside from doing efforts or intervals, I use it a lot on like longer climbs. Like I used it on Haleakala when I was in Maui last summer, because, it's a super long climb and it's deceiving how long it is. And so it can help you pace a certain climb or certain segment, because it also, like you said, it shows you how much you have left in the segment, distance wise. And so you can kind of use that to your advantage to like help you pace a certain long climb or a hill climb or, a TT maybe. But again, you just have to be very careful that it doesn't get too much into your head, because that's, I think, a common issue.
Yeah. I mean, you can, if you're not on a really good day, there's not that. I mentioned positive reinforcement. There is negative reinforcement, and that's what, it's brutally honest. It'll tell you you're 10 seconds behind, and then if you're not keeping up, it'll be like 15 seconds behind, 30 seconds behind. So there's that. And the other thing, it's based on perhaps, I mean, a PR is a PR. That's your personal record. And it doesn't, tell you when you were, there's certain times of the year when you may be going faster than you ever have, like the winter. So I'll have like my winter PRs and the summer PRs, like when you're in shape and when you're not in shape,
Yeah.
things like that. Some guys have like my skinny PRs and my out of shape PRs, that sort of thing.
Yeah, because I've had some experiences where I'm, using the live Strava thing to do some intervals or try to go hard, and then it becomes a really negative thing because
Mhm.
it gets in your head where you're like way behind, and then you just kind of give up because like
Yeah.
instead of just following through. And then sometimes I kind of learn that I just like will shut it off if I'm not
Yeah.
if I'm trying not to get have it get into my head.
There's a dismiss button. I don't know if you've ever
Yeah,
used
yeah, I
that.
have definitely used the dismiss button.
I would get like unattainably behind and it'll tell me that and I'll just hit dismiss.
Yeah,
And then don't quit. Keep doing your effort because you're still getting in the training. That's when you switch off of doing a live segment and maybe go back to the traditional hold your power, as hard as you can, that sort of thing. Because you're still doing an effort or an interval. You're still getting in the training, and you just don't want to flip it, turn around, go home. It's
right.
still probably beneficial, but yeah, just if be forewarned. That is a thing. Once you've got some pretty good efforts up there, if you're new to cycling and you're just going to be improving month after month, year after year, then it's like this really rewarding thing that because I have athletes that are, they're in their first like year of training and it seems like every ride they go out on, they're PRing and it's so much fun to upload your ride to Strava. They're like, yep, got another PR. So that's what we talk about, how it's really fun.
Yeah, but I mean, again, too, it's like for those of us who have been living and training in one place for a long time, and you go through ups and
Mm-hmm.
downs of fitness,
Mm-hmm.
there's going to be some of my, fastest times up super flag or something. It's uh, like it's going to be hard for me to PR my, super flag time or something
Yeah.
because, and so it's like there's no way to like change that on the Wahoo to be like, well, can we do like 2019 PR?
Yeah,
Because like,
which they have. You can go, but you don't have. That's not a live segment feed.
yeah, yeah. So
Yeah.
it's just hard because sometimes even if you know that like, okay, well, I'm probably not on 26-minute super flag shape, maybe I can still do like 28 minutes or something, and
Mm-hmm.
that I guess you can just kind of like deductively figure that out using math, but it's a little bit of you just have to be careful about that stuff. But I think it's awesome for just that, like you said, that positive feedback because we've all experienced that feeling of like going out for intervals and you just don't feel super motivated that day,
Uh-huh.
but throw in a little extra carrot to help you um to help you get motivated to kind of smash it out, get a little bit of extra effort in. I think is it's a really useful tool for those lacking motivation days or parts of the season.
That's right.
What are your thoughts on using it in racing?
No, don't do that. Well, let me just say that. So if it's the type of racing where you're in a peloton, you're on wheels, definitely not mountain biking or cyclocross where you need to, keep your eyes on the trail. Probably not a criterium. Time trial, yes, kind of, sorta. Road race, maybe like we mentioned the oat route. Like if you're on a steady climb, I think that it can be useful there. But I guess like if you're shoulder to shoulder, riding in a peloton, I don't really recommend it. You need to just race your bike in the traditional sense. I think where Strava live segments really comes into play is if you get into a race situation where you're by yourself,
Yeah.
or maybe at least like at the Crusher. I mean, you could certainly use the live segments for the Col de Crush and the first climb because really in that type of gravel race, it's you against the course. And if you can use the Strava Live segment to motivate you to, race the course a little bit harder than you would on your own, that's a good tool. But for a traditional, maybe, yeah.
Because
Does
it'd be
that kind of
tough. I
answer your
think.
question?
I think it'd be tough in like a race situation where maybe you haven't ridden
Mhm.
the segments, and so you don't have a PR to go off of. You only
Right.
have the KOM, and so if you're doing like the Crusher and you star, the Cold to Crush, the only
Mhm.
thing you have on there to go off of is the KOM, and so
KOM.
it might get into your head a little bit unless you
Yeah.
just like because you have no idea what to how to gauge that effort.
It'll still tell you how much further you have to go. And that's what I
True.
use at the O Route Asheville. And that's, of course, the KOM is way unattainable for me. But the feature that said you have 3 minutes left, now two, that was immeasurable because
Oh,
that's what
because it
you
gives
need.
you, yeah, that's right. It gives you the like
Mhm.
estimated time of finishing.
Yeah, that was just, I mean, you can gain or lose a lot of time in that last 2 minutes. And I really was able to dig a lot deeper than because if you think you have 10 minutes left, but you really only have two, that's two different intensities.
Yeah, that's
And
true.
to know that I could really pour all my energy out, but it was going to be over in 2 minutes was a completely different effort than say if you had like, 8 or 10.
Mm.
So I
Yeah.
think the live features is good there, but for most situations, you need to go old school. I guess Strava live segments would be mostly a training technique and maybe an occasional unique. It is specific to that race section.
Cool.
So now that you've got your starred segments, I don't want this to be a podcast on the technical part of getting Strava Live segments to sync with your bike computer. I'm a Wahoo guy. You just do it through the app. It's literally a one button sync. You need Wi-Fi. Yeah, the same. I think it's the same thing with Garmin Connect. And then so it's on your bike computer. It beeps at you when you're going. But getting back to like before you head out on your bike, if you're going to do a Strava Vols, I'll tell athletes on their training plan, hey, I'll just put in Strava hunting. It'll be in otherwise what would be an interval day following a rest day usually. And I'll just say, hey, go out and choose a PR or a KOM, and I want you to do some Strava Vols. And so, it takes a little pre-planning on the athlete's part. And this is where you get to have fun and design your own training. And maybe that's the other part that I like Strava Vols as a coach is because, usually, for the last 9 months, I've been telling the athlete exactly what to do, second by second, watt by watt. And here is a chance for the athlete to go out and create their own workout on something that is, personally motivates them. Maybe not so. I think that there's a benefit to that. And so, say like an athlete has a fun segment, and I'll show you guys a fun segment that really is just kind of fun and silly, but is nice to do. It's a hey, there's a window washer there. um, uh,
He's my brother's friend. He's
oh,
washing the
nice.
windows.
So I think you guys should be able to see my start segments. There's a climb. It's called the Juilliard School of Climbing, and this is a popular segment in a neighborhood in South Boulder, and it takes about 1 minute. So I'll do repeats up the school of Juilliard for cyclocross training, and my PR is 1 minute and 17 seconds. The KOM was 107. This is another one of those, the early adopter Stravas. At one point, I think I was pretty close to getting a KOM, and I would go out there and I'd try, and to get it. You don't get it, but then you're blown, so you have to go home and rest and recover, maybe go back next week, and then it was pretty funny. I got the KOM, and then this youngster that follows me on social media, I really like him. He went and he was like, "Oh yeah," and then he went and got it, and then his coach, who also coached a world tour rider, to put this youngster in his place, sent Nathan Haas over there, and Nathan went and just stomped it, blew it out of the water by like 10 seconds, and that'll never, be broken again unless someone else like Nathan Haas comes along.
That's
20,
impressive. You're only 10 seconds behind Nathan Haas, though. I think you should get called into the tour if you're ready for the tour.
Probably, yeah. I mean,
That's how
because
Strava works, right?
That's how Strava works. It's kind of like Zwift racing.
Yep,
If you win
same
the
thing.
Zwift race, you get called up to the World Tour. Point is, I was super motivated by that, and that was a tool that I used. And instead of doing 1 minute intervals, physiologically, it was the same benefit. But I used this live segment to really, push myself further than I would be on my own. And so you want to design your workouts that way. That's just one example in many. It could be the possibilities are endless. The point is that you're choosing and you're making that choice. So you design your workout, you star your segment, you sync your computer, and then you go out and you're warming up. And just really, I like to just advise athletes warm up for 25, 30 minutes, go easy, don't kill yourself on the way over there. Treat this Strava segment just like a race. And then you're rolling, take a deep breath, you arrive at your segment and you just give it all you got. And because it's not 2 sets of 3x3 reps, you can go that much harder. You can turn yourself inside out. This is where, we talk about full gas a lot on this podcast for intervals. This is when you can go full gas, because you're only going to do 1 or 2 reps. You're not going to do, 6. So you get to go that much harder. And, use the live segment feature. Hopefully look at if you're ahead, and then, use the feature also to see how much further you have to go. Push yourself hard, and then you get to the top and you're done. And if you do like 2 efforts like that in a 45 to 90 minute ride, and if you were to PR on both of them, it's a really good summertime workout for your racing. And that's kind of like what we did with that gravel simulation video we did last summer. We chose the segment. It was something fun and challenging. It was specific to the crusher and the tusher. And you took off, and I was behind you, but I was still on track to PR, and so were you. And you actually KOM'd.
But then it got stolen later on.
Oh yeah, someone trolled you. That's what happens when you guys when you KOM,
especially people older.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I think like also it was really motivating leading up to the crusher to pull out some of those kind of efforts, leading into the race, because it kind of like gives you that reinforcement to get through those hard periods of training. And I remember like I kind of set up my own little mini training camp. During that time I was house sitting for a friend, and so I just had like my own house to myself basically, and I was just training super hard, eating super well, and as a result, like it was a really big volume period. It was really hard. It was hot here in Boulder. Crusher was looming, and so it can be tough to stay motivated and excited during those periods. But I think the Strava thing was really helpful, because it was like, okay, this is a segment that really mimics the main climb of the crusher. I'm doing this in a gravel simulation ride, so it's kind of mimicking the whole thing. And when you do that, when you PR or you maybe get a KOM, or you just do some really super good effort, that's like extremely it just kind of like gets you really going and excited, and it kind of helps you. And it really did. I mean, it really led me into feeling super strong for the crusher. I had a good ride, and
builds your confidence.
It builds the confidence for sure.
Yeah, yeah. So that's like the fun part. And I remember when we were talking about what segment to do. I mean, that was like we were just looking at what climbs we could do that were close to 1 hour and what segments those were, and so go off and when you're choosing what segment to go for, make it challenging. You could get the other thing you can do is look at um, maybe some sections where you've not been going as hard as you can, but you kind of almost got the segment anyway. And, then you kind of think, well, if I really concentrate and focus on that segment, I can get it. And so, yeah, you start and you go out and you use that as motivation to get it.
Yep.
So, so yeah, that's really it. Now, say you're doing a road race that's gonna, it's got some punchy climbs, but maybe one long climb in it. So, say you're doing a road race that's got a bunch of like 30 to 60 segment climbs, and then there's one 10-minute climb. Well, the beauty of using Strava goals is you can go out and do two efforts. You don't have to do the same segment for the workout. You can do two different segments. So like you can do the popular one that I do in around here is I'll do a segment on left hand canyon, which is generally longer. It can be anywhere from like 10 to 30 minutes. And then you can do like the backside of Old Stage, which is like a 2.5 minute segment. So you can mix and match the physiological adaptations that you're going for in your workout. Uh, you can do longer efforts and you can do shorter efforts. And there's no rule that says you can't do both in the same workout.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's super super key, and I mean, there's even it can get a little tricky too. But I found that you can also star segments within segments, so you can star like just the first part of Flagstaff, and then it'll like switch, and you can switch between segments on the Bolt. I don't know how it works on the Garmin because I haven't used that, but you can switch if you have multiple segments within one bigger segment. Say like all of one of the main climbs here is in Boulder is Super Flag. So there's like the first part up to the amphitheater, which is like maybe a 15-minute effort. You can kind of gauge your effort there, see where you are, and then it'll switch once you get to that. So you can kind of break it up, and you can kind of have little bite-sized pieces instead of just going for the full Super Flag. And so likewise with the shorter efforts, you can also still be going for the longer the longer full, let's say Boulder to Gold Hill or something, but you can also you know do some shorter efforts within that bigger effort. You know what I mean? I think that
Mm-hmm.
could be helpful.
It'd be like doing an over under
Yeah.
style where you're going really hard, but then you settle back down to your normal pace. And then maybe, the Chapman has got a segment at the very top. It's for about a minute. And,
Mm.
so you can kind of ride Chapman and then go extra hard. And, because it's that 1 minute segment within a 12 minute segment. And, yeah, your strong levels overall is you're just kind of to use your phrase hack. You're just kind of tricking yourself to going harder and looking for a way to motivate yourself to go harder than you would in a traditional interval workout because it's late in the season, it's hot. You've probably done this work, a normal VO2 max interval workout maybe 2 or 3 times already. So, variety is the spice of life. You're just looking at a different way of approaching your training, but getting the same benefit out of it.
Yeah, and sometimes it's fun to do also like kind of near the end of the season to do like kind of Strava sniper workouts where it's kind of more freestyle, but you're just choosing maybe 3 segments or something instead
Mm.
of like doing a much more structured workout. You have like 3 Strava segments. Maybe it is a really short one, and then maybe like a 5-minute one, and then like a 20-minute effort. I've also found it, and I'm curious to hear what your opinion is on this. I've also found it to be very helpful in motivating me to go super deep during FTP tests. Um, is that
Mhm.
is that sacrilegious?
No, not at all. In fact, on the if you scroll down here, hold on, let me see if I can share my screen again. Um, I will show you my Strava segment that when Strava first came along, we created, if you, or let me see if I can.
I see the fast cat 20. Yeah, 20
Yeah, you
minutes.
see it, the Fast Cat 20-minute test, and that is on Left Hand Canyon.
Mm.
And I created that segment when I would tell athletes they needed to do a 20-minute test, and I would send this because a lot of the questions I get on when you do a field test is where do you go, where do you begin, what's appropriate. And here in Boulder, we have so many choices, so it really helped to show athletes, hey, go do your field test exactly here. It's the exact steepness and without any downhills anyway. But yeah, so the Fast Cat 20-minute test, somehow we underestimated it because the KOM is 25 to 22, and gosh, I am way behind. I'm like 36-27. That might have been back when I was into doing 30-minute field tests for whatever reason. But yeah, absolutely. Use the live segment feature to, get you to go harder than you would on your own. If you're 4 seconds behind your PR at 15 minutes in and you got 5 minutes left, you can do it. You can hold that effort and dig that much deeper and just pull back those 4 seconds over the course of the next 5 minutes to, get a PR. And then, that's a great motivational tool.
Yeah, for sure.
You know what I like to do also is I call them the long bomb, the really, really long Strava segment. It's piecing together 2 or 3 segments. So there's Chapman to Super Flag, and then you go down Gross Dam, and you go up Gross Dam climb to Highway 72 to Wonderview, and then down and you go up 68J to Magnolia. That is a segment. And sometimes when I'm needing extra motivation, I'll use that segment because it takes like about 90 minutes. And, it helps. And so it's kind of fun. And if you don't have a group ride to do that with, you can just use your live segment feature to, help push you, because 90 minutes is a long time to kind of sustain your motivation. But if you have the live feature, looking at you, and you can tell, I was doing it about a month ago when I ran into a friend, and at the top of the mailboxes, we chatted for a while, and I instead of like normally taking off and saying, hey, I got to go because Strava, I could just look down and I saw that I was like 3 minutes ahead. So I actually chatted with him a while, and it gave me the confidence that I could still get it, even though I was soft pedaling and we were socializing a little bit.
Nice.
But yeah, that's kind of Strava vols in a nutshell. The last thing I want to talk about is it's not necessarily the live segment feature, but it's using Strava during your group ride to go extra hard. And I want to share with you guys some training peaks. Can you see that, Jackson?
Yep.
Okay, cool. So in Training Peaks, if you look at my cursor, this is the Lagerman Preserve segment. It's about 10 to 14 minutes. On this day, it was 14 minutes, but the KOM is about 10 minutes. And my friends and I, we like to turn off on here and then essentially race each other all the way to the end here. And a lot of times what happens in a group ride is you get to the point where everyone is just, the segment blows up and everyone's off on their own. And in a race situation, you kind of sit up and ease off because you're ahead, or you're not going to catch the guy in front of you, but you're going to stay ahead of the guy behind you. But you can use the Strava PR feature to keep going hard, and then when you get done with your ride and you're looking at your post ride analysis, you can say, oh, I PR'd compared to last week or last summer, and it gets you to go a little bit extra harder and get a little bit more out of your training, out of your effort. And we all have those group rides, like the Carter Lake group ride. There's a Strava segment from the bottom to the top of the Carter Lake Dam, and you can look at your PR there and see if you're improving week to week over the winter, for example. I'm sure there's 1,000 examples, but you can maybe attack at a certain place in the group ride for no reason other than Strava, but you're really using that as an effort to get in interval training, for example. And you're not doing intervals, you're just having fun, but physiologically you're benefiting from interval-like efforts. So you can use Strava like that on your group rides. I don't really recommend it for maybe like cyclocross or mountain biking, although a lot of mountain bikers use the downhill segments these days. But there's a gazillion mountain bike segments, and but that would be one not to use when you're actually going for it, because you need to keep your eyes on the trail. But yeah, for like your Wednesday Worlds or your Tuesday night group ride, absolutely, you can attack your segment and have fun with it.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's super useful, and but again, I think it's worth a word of caution to not like have it be a crutch that you rely on for motivation, because I mean, yeah, it's like any tool. It can be used for good and for bad, I think. And I see a lot of people, often myself included, that kind of get too caught up in the world of Strava, and that like you start to do rides solely based on, trying to hit PRs on certain climbs, and instead of actually focusing on the training or the fun of cycling. And so, I mean, Strava's cool, but it's also, I've found it can get into your head.
Absolutely. And remember, Strava goals is just a training technique that we're advocating here in July and August. It's not necessarily something that we would advocate in March or something, but sometimes I'll talk to an athlete and I'll find out a group ride that they're doing. And I had a conversation with one athlete, and his motivation was kind of waning, yet he still had some big goals coming up. And we were looking at ways to motivate him. And we were like, okay, let's go to a group ride. But then the thing is like, the group ride wasn't hard enough.
Mm-hmm.
He wasn't challenged enough because he was the strongest like rider there. And so we were trying to find a way to challenge him. And the idea that came up, that was kind of one of the inspirations for this podcast overall, was like, well, let's use the segments in your group ride of the route that you guys will travel, and just attack the group, and we'll go as hard as you can for 4 minutes from point A to point B. We'll look at your Strava and use it that way. And that was way better for him than me saying, you got to go out and do 4-minute VO2 max intervals.
Yeah, I mean, like I think that's also why there's been this uptick in popularity for kind of like the oat route style events, or like Grinduro, or some of these races that they're segment based, because it's a little bit easier to fathom going super hard for short, bite-sized segments, rather than like some 5-hour long race where you're, attacking each other and all of that. It can kind of help you sort of like, chunk it out. And so that you can, have a little bit of more quality over quantity. And so you can kind of mimic that in your own training too, because, sometimes it's like, oh, I have to hold 250 watts for 3 hours, doing like, some
Yeah.
sort of hard efforts, or, upper, zone 2 or something. Instead, it might be, you might get more out of your workout by doing a few, harder segments or something like that along the route of your whole loop or something.
Yeah, absolutely. And the time segment format is really, it's kind of like organized Strava,
Yeah.
where you're just going hard from point A to point B. And that's kind of what Strava is. Like when Phil does his Phil's Fondo, they don't hire a timing result company. You just use Strava for your
Mm,
results. And, he obviously partners with Strava and they organize the segments into Strava. But you can look at Phil's, cookie chocolate chip route and it'll just list out the 3 segments and, show you your results right on Strava. So, um, yeah, I think that's why, the time segment format has become so popular and fun because you can kind of do it in your big rides anyway.
yeah.
Well, I think that is mostly it for Strava Volt. So take a rest day, star your segments, and go out there and go hard. It's usually all you need to do for a midweek little intensity workout here in mid-July. To keep going good for the rest of your racing in August. And we weren't able to really. Jackson, were you able to see any of the comments or the feedback on the YouTube show?
We've gotten 2 comments, but no
Oh,
questions or anything.
okay.
So if you have any last minute questions, and you're watching on YouTube, feel free to drop those in. Um, but yeah.
I think if you're listening to our podcast, like most of our podcast listeners are, and you're wondering about something, go to our forum.fastcatcoaching.com. We have a podcast section. You'll see this podcast posted, and that's a great place to take the discussion, beyond just what we've talked about here in the last hour. Ask a question, and we can expand on it. I mean, I think that the training possibilities are, sounds cliche, but they are endless when you start talking about designing workouts and using Strava live segments.
Cool.
All right. Well, everyone, thank you for listening. Remember to FTFP, and we will talk with you next week, same time, same bat channel.
All right. Have a good rest of your week. Good weekend of training. You're going out to Steamboat to do some pre-ride some of the
Oh,
course,
yeah.
aren't you?
I am, and we should mention that because I'm going up to Steamboat tomorrow to ride the Steamboat gravel course. And one of the questions I want to answer for you and be able to share with you is what the course is like, what the climbing is like, how fast are the downhills, what the gravel is like, what's the potential for flats or not. My big thing is I have a road bike and I'm running 32 millimeter tubeless gravel tires, and I want to make sure that they're okay, that I'm not going to flat them, and that they're going to be suitable for that course. So that's why I'm going up there, and yeah, maybe that's what we'll podcast about next week, along with because you're going to ride the Rebecca's course this week.
Yeah, I think on Saturday, my dad and I are going to go out and ride the full Rebecca's, the main, big potato as they call it, stage, the final stage on this weekend. And so obviously the conditions could change, but I'm planning on bringing, some cameras, multiple cameras with me, maybe get some drone video, just to kind of share with you, especially if you haven't done Rebecca's, because there's kind of a pivotal climb in there, and just the road surface is a little bit unique out there, I think. And so, yeah, I'm excited for that. It's been a while. I mean, I haven't ever actually ridden that loop outside of the race itself. So I'm excited to like actually ride it a little bit more casually than smashing it in the race. So yeah.
Super. Well, we can interview each other next week, and
Yeah.
we can share with all of you all what the Steamboat Gravel and Rebecca's Private Idaho gravel courses are like.
Cool. Well, hopefully this was helpful, and hopefully that this actually worked. I think it seemed to work pretty smoothly, in my opinion. So,
Yeah.
um, but yeah, let us know if you have any questions in the forum. And like Frank said, we'll be back next week. Have a great weekend.
Peace, everyone.